Welcome to the Missouri Wind and Solar Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Shank, coming to you from our store in Seymour, Missouri. Each week with my co-host and Missouri Wind's General Manager, David McDarris, we discuss the latest on renewable energy. Check out our additional educational information on our website at mwands.com. Thank you for downloading this podcast, and please subscribe. All right, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Me and David here today, talking about all the great things that are wind and solar. Got a question for David today. I've heard this a little bit here lately and want to run into this battery question. And batteries are always a great source of conversation here at the podcast. Question I've got, and I'm interested to get David's take on this, is let's say you've got a handful of new batteries and brand new, so they should all be the exact same wear and tear, etc. on them. But we're getting some voltage differences amongst those batteries. What would you typically look at to kind of troubleshoot that and figure out why would we be getting some voltage differences between these batteries that should be just the exact same?
First thing that we're going to do, we're going to ask you the number of batteries you have. And for this instance, you told me that you have 8 batteries. Now, they're 6-volt batteries, and you've also said that they were a 24-volt system. So that tells me that you have 2 banks of batteries series together. You've taken 4 and series them together to make 24 volts. And then you have 2 banks of those running at 20, and then you've paralleled those together. So I series them together to get my voltage, and then I paralleled them together. Now, the next question I'm going to ask you is, where do you have your cables, your inverter cables hooked to this unit at, and or your consumption cables? That doesn't just have to be inverter. It can be lights, it can be DC appliance, it can be other things. So your consumption cables, and also where do you have your production cables? So your charge controller or your wind turbine charge, anything that's putting power into the batteries. Where do you have these hooked? And if you told me that I have on bank 1, I have my positive on bank 1, and I have my negative on bank 2, I'm going to tell you to go and hook that immediately because you are wrong. You do not have it hooked up correctly, and you are doing what they call waterfalling the batteries. So you're putting all the power that you're generating and all the power that you're consuming coming off of one battery bank.
Okay, so when you say bank 1 and bank 2, you're talking about the positive and negative on the same battery.
On the same bank of batteries.
On the same bank.
So a bank of batteries is the 4. Okay. We're going to call the bank of batteries is the 4 batteries that made up the series of batteries.
So if I'm looking at my batteries and I'm going left to right on them.
Okay.
So I've got battery 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's a series bank 1.
Okay. So I've got a cable on my far left-hand one battery, say on the positive.
Okay.
And then my far right-hand battery, I've got it on the negative.
Okay. That would be fine if you only had one bank.
But if I've got a second row behind that,
you're going to put the negative on bank 2's negative on the back. So same side,
right? Polar
opposites. So the same side that you were going to put it on a minute ago, you're going to move it the battery back. You're going to go to the farthest bank away.
And that's what I was about to say. So you want it as far from each other as possible.
Right. And that's going to produce even electron flow throughout the entire series of batteries, and then it will jump to then it has to get to the back batteries as well. And to do that, it has to run through the electron flow has to run through that bank of batteries as well, and we'll run at an even rate.
So positive's got to find negative, negative's got to find positive. So it's going to go through all those batteries
correct
evenly to find each other.
And that's when we're dealing with a flooded lead acid or an aqueous battery, and or any type of aqueous battery, which would be a flooded lead acid or a sealed AGM. There's still going to be a water-based battery. So when we're dealing with that, that's where we're going to hook up at. A lot of the new batteries in the lithium, Simplify being one of the ones that we carry, which we feel is probably one of the best batteries on the market right now for our industry, they're going to be, instead of having to put a bunch of batteries in a series to make your voltage, they're actually going to be voltage specific. They're going to make a 12-volt model which we can order. We do not carry. It's pretty rare that we have people want them, but they also make it in a 24 volt and a 48 volt. That's actually built. It's a battery that is already seriesed inside. It's already made to that voltage. And so then when I have multiple batteries that I need to parallel together, instead of the old standby like we do with our flooded lead acid or even our North Star Blue batteries, instead of jumping one battery back to the next one with a cable, you're actually going to go to a battery combiner box. And that's where the big question has started playing out, is people, as these new battery technologies come on, and it's not so much from us that people have had problems from our design or from our telling how people, but it's just they've went with the old standby. Well, I've got these new batteries now. I've had these batteries for 8 years, and they were a good Trojan battery, and they worked well but now I don't want to change these every 8 years. And I've got the money to go ahead and buy these Simplifies. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And so with that, they just hook it up the same way they did the old standby flooded lead acid, and it doesn't work well. It doesn't dispel the energy properly from the batteries. And what we found out through many, many years of testing, and this just isn't in lithium, but it is very important in lithium, that all cable lengths have to be exactly the same length when converting multiple batteries into a combiner box. So, for instance, maybe I have 5 batteries in a row, the farthest battery being 6 foot from my combiner box, so I need 6 foot cables, and my closest battery is 1 foot away. Well, old tradition would have told us to just
short wire, long wire,
longer. And what happens is the exact same thing that we were getting before. We're starting to get the waterfall effect, that it is using more power out of battery 1 because it's a shorter electron flow. And so whatever's using that energy is getting more power from battery 1 than it would be from battery 2, and so on and so forth down the line. And so what people are having is premature failure of their battery because they think that the batteries themselves, you think, well, I'm getting it down to 80% DOD. Well, you may be getting it down to 80% DOD on battery 5, but on battery 1, you may have went past 100% DOD and actually shut the battery down in some cases that we've seen. And so that's the issue. Now, coming back around, we've also found that that's a big shortcoming in the aqueous systems as well. So from here out, that's how we are teaching and how we are designing systems. We are going with same cable lengths, no matter the battery chemistry, because we have found that it actually dispels energy more evenly. So you don't have that despairing, I'm going to go to battery 1 and check it, no charge, nothing's happening on it. And I checked it and it's 12.6 and everything's ran exactly the same way. And I went over to battery 4 and I checked it and it was 12.2. So what happened today, Or I went to bank 2 and everything was at 12.4 and everything on bank 1 was at 12.6, and it's the same thing. It's just because and it's very similar in how you're hooking up when you're doing a series connection as well. Series is not as important, but it is important to do it as the same as on that as well. But your series, you definitely want the cable lengths from bank 1 and bank 2 to be the same length, because it could happen exactly the same way. If it's traveling faster through bank 1 and something's pulling energy from it, then bank 1's giving that voltage quicker than bank 2 would be giving it if it had longer cables on it. So that's something that we've been looking into. We do a lot of research in our products, and this is something that, matter of fact, there's even a rack that we had that had different lengths cables on it, and that's where one of the problems was in line. There was a telecommunication person that we knew, and they kept having failure on batteries sooner than the norm would be. We found out that that's exactly what they were doing. They had multiple banks, and they had them in different areas of the building, but everything feeding. Well, they would have this one bank would always fail way before the other banks would fail. It was still giving the energy, and so they weren't out checking it, but it was running those batteries almost to dead. Now, they weren't lithiums, they were the blue technology, but it was running them almost to dead, so they were getting 3 and 4 years of life out of them at best. Most of the time, they were getting 2 years, whereas a lot of the other batteries in the system, they were getting the 7, 8, and 9 years and 10 plus in some of them on the other banks. So they knew that there was an issue there, and then that's what it wound up being. It was the length of the actual cable.
So what we're kind of saying here is, I mean, electricity in this instance, again, just proving more and more of the plumbing analogy. So electricity is going to take the path of least resistance, and a shorter wire is going to pull from there more than a longer wire. So what I heard you say too is this is not a new issue. It's just an issue that the new technologies.
That's right. It's bringing it to light.
Kind of brings it more to light. Right. And our old tried and true workhorse lead acid. Right. It probably didn't hurt them.
It didn't hurt them as bad. Lead acid batteries, even though they're the least of the three as far as being efficient, and they're still the workhorse. I mean, you can beat on them, and they're just going to just do their job. If they've got the power to do it, they're going to do their job. Now, they're like a beast of burden. They may fall over and die a lot quicker. It's the old farm truck versus the Ferrari. I mean, you're not going to go out through the field bouncing through with your Ferrari. I mean, but you don't care to take the old work truck and go bouncing through the field with it. That's what you're coming up with here. I mean, as people are starting to spend, $2,400 per battery, in some cases needing 6 of these batteries. I mean, you're talking a $12,000 to $15,000 price tag and higher. I mean,
so if you were to go out and look at, say you're off grid, go out and looked at your battery bank and you see where you have a situation where your cables are mismanaged like this, I mean, would you 5-alarm call and get them swapped out? Or if you had lead acid batteries that were 8 years old, would you keep rolling the dice and wait, or how would you look? I mean, obviously, if you had a lithium battery, you need to get it swapped out. Now, quick asterisk here: does this violate any warranties anywhere?
On the simplified, it won't violate your warranty, but what it will do is cause premature failure of the battery. Whereas you should be able to get anywhere from about 20 to 25 years, maybe plus on these. You might find that your battery dies in 10 years and 1 month, and they got a 10-year warranty.
Yeah.
And then, your cost per watt really goes up at that point.
Right.
So, and Wes and we went over the math, hundreds of ways and hundreds of times trying to. And cost per watt, lithium batteries are by far the most efficient battery and most cost-effective battery. It's just that upfront costing is usually the hang-up there.
Yeah, but a 10-year and 1 month would.
But if you're
screw that.
If you're looking, but yes, that's exactly right, because we base it on a certain number, and if that number gets cut in half, then our cost per watt literally is going to double. So it's really so. I would say going back to, you said if we got 8-year-old batteries, and I still put it as a pretty high priority. I mean, but in the same respect, I find anything to be wrong in a system needs to be fixed immediately. Be as it doesn't cost you anything or it does cost you something, it needs to be fixed. I mean, if you want to get the most efficient, especially if you're off-grid, if you want to be the most efficient, and more than likely if you're off-grid, there's either one or two reasons. The power company is so far away from you that it's just cost prohibitive, or you're wanting to be more cost efficient. You're actually wanting to be cost efficient. Make your own electricity. You want to be efficient. And by not doing this, you're actually going against your own principle.
Whatever your reasoning is for that.
If you're off-grid due to there's no power grid coming in, then you definitely want to be the most efficient you can, So
you're going to be without power in a little while too.
So you definitely want to. You would definitely want to.
And I mean, even in kind of any scenario, if you had to do a replacement on even a large number of batteries, it couldn't be.
It's not going to be that much, and a lot of it now you can look back and see that. Let's just say, for instance, that you had 3 banks of batteries, and all these 3 banks of batteries. And let's say they're simplifies where you're having to go to the combiner box with them. And you had the 1 foot and the 3 foot and the 5 foot. Well, the 5 foot's still
5 foot's still good. Yeah.
Still good. All you have to buy is the 3 and the 1 footer. just get rid of them and don't splice them. Don't try to do anything like that. I mean, you're just going to have to buy 4 more 5-foot cables is all you're buying. So it's not like you're having to trash your whole system. You're just having to replace the ones that need to be replaced, and so that's what I would tell you there. And if it was on the backward side of that, maybe the 3-footer would cover all of it by just moving the battery bank. Well, then now you just cut down your 5-footers down to 3-footers, and then you go buy your
just for the 1-footer.
You just go buy your ones for the 1-footers. So we got a great customer base, and they're going to know how to to improvise. But there again, wiring is a very, very important part of your. It's the number one thing that we sell. I mean, with any system, if we're selling a turbine, we're selling wiring. If we're selling solar, we're selling wiring. If we're selling batteries, we're selling wiring. So it goes along with all of our systems. So it's very important. And I know I talk on a lot, but it's a very important part of our systems, and having it properly sized and properly. And when I say sized, I don't just mean the gauge. I actually mean the lengthening of it too.
Yeah. I mean, wiring, you don't get an A, a B, or a C. It's kind of a pass-fail.
Right.
You either got it right or you don't.
That's right.
and not having it right is not where you
very,
very,
very bad for
very
a system.
bad, very, very expensive. So, okay, I think we good on that.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll put this one in the books and bring you another one as soon as we can. Thanks a lot. Thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast today. If you have a question that you'd like to hear us discuss on the podcast, email us at radio@mwands.com. You can follow us on our website, mwands.com, or subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. Check out our store at mwands.com and buy some stuff. Buying stuff allows us to continue to produce our educational broadcasts, like our podcasts and YouTube videos. And most importantly, it keeps Lucy's doggy chicken treats coming. Thanks again.